Having kids is such an important decision.
We're just waiting for the right time.
I'm gonna all of y'all! That's my boy!
Idiocracy wasn't a stupid comedy. It was a prophecy contained within poop jokes. Beyond the stupidity, there existed genuine panic, and beyond the humor, a chilling admonition. The movie was weird, sloppy, and frequently muddled, but decades down the line, it was one of the most uncomfortably prescient works of satire ever stumbled upon by Hollywood. The road to the creation of it was marred by conflicts, studio sabotage, creative concessions, and a title switch that almost killed the project. Terry Crews fought merely to appear on screen. Maya Rudolph's real-life journey was playing out in tandem with her on-screen one. The creator himself ultimately ceased referring to it as a comedy, and buried deep within its convoluted family histories and dystopian anarchy was a crossover that connected a cartoon Texan to something with hooves. The history of Idiocracy is not about one film. It's about how a lost satire became a documentary of contemporary life. If this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel Star Vault TV, and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started. It didn't begin in a studio writing room, though, but in Disneyland. Mike Judge, creator of Office Space, King of the Hill, and Beavis and Butt-Head, was waiting in line for Peter Pan's flight with his daughters. Another dad in a sluggish line, another day in a cacophonous amusement park. And then he heard something. Two mothers yelling obscenities at their toddlers, loud, unapologetic, and aggressive. Judge later remembered that moment. It struck me that people like this are going to outbreed the smart people, and they're raising their kids like this. Right there, in the midst of the happiest place on earth, the seed of Idiocracy was sown. He departed the park, not only as a father, but as the creator of a dystopia where brains are bred out of existence, stupidity is king, and society implodes with pride. But it was never meant to be named Idiocracy. Judge's original title was even more biting. The United States of America, spelled phonetically, elongated, slurred, as if the nation's very name had been simplified. The Fox executives loathed it. Not disliked, loathed. To them, it was too confrontational, too rude, too humiliating. They feared audiences would interpret it as unpatriotic, that critics would deem it anti-American. Judge battled to keep it, but he was outvoted. Weeks of argument produced the compromised title Idiocracy. Even that created tension within the studio. Some of the executives believed that it was too cynical, too nasty, too biting an insult to proudly market. And so it was decided, retain the title but kill the release. When finally the film was complete, Fox accorded it the most lackadaisical rollout conceivable. No trailer, no posters, no press tour. Theaters were not even properly provided with material. Some had it listed as untitled Mike Judge Project. There was no marketing, no red carpets, not even the pretense of support. The message was clear as day. This was a film the studio wanted to keep hidden. Actors didn't even know it had opened until after it had closed. But you can't erase a film entirely. Word to get out DVDs passed around, and gradually, agonizingly, Idiocracy gained its fans. Even prior to release, the film had been a war zone. Judge had been guaranteed a small but functional budget. But then the trimming started. Whole days of shooting disappeared. Locations were exchanged. Extras got cut. Sets were reused. There was even a time when they couldn't afford decent digital effects, so logos had to be crudely blurred during post-production. The final insult was when crew members were informed their checks could be held up or not come at all. Some never received full payment. A movie about corporate ineptness was being shut down by corporate ineptness in real life. Meanwhile, Maya Rudolph, who portrayed Rita, was dealing with her own life disruption. As the movie was being quietly dumped by Fox, she had just given birth to her first child with director Paul Thomas Anderson. On screen, she was struggling to survive in a world where stupidity was destroying civilization. Off-screen, she was struggling with the very real turmoil of new motherhood. For Rudolph, Idiocracy was a bizarre double life, fighting commercials and mannequins in one reality, holding a newborn in another. Then there was Terry Crews. His president, Dwayne Elizondo Mountain Dew Herbert Camacho, was so boisterous, so crazy, so indelible that it was the public face of the movie. But it nearly didn't come to pass. Crews auditioned 5 times. Studio executives demanded bigger, safer names. They believed Crews wasn't famous enough to front such an unsafe movie. By the 5th audition, he was angry and about to walk out. He stared down the casting staff and told them, "If you can find someone better, just give it to him." And then he let out the chaos, the screaming, the improvisation, the sheer craziness that would become Camacho. At that moment, the job was his. Judge instructed his extras with a one-word memo: play dumb, cartoon-level stupid. Occasionally, they crossed the line. One background actor dry-humped set pieces. Another acted out racist jokes. Judge cut those shots, not because they were unfunny, but because they entered cruelty. His future world needed to be ridiculous, not mean-spirited. Even in satire, stupidity had its limits. Some of the satire, however, came disturbingly close to home. Civilization did not end in war or zombies. It ended in a pile of garbage. Ridiculous as it may seem, Judge took the concept straight from actual accounts of America's garbage epidemic. The dump became de facto in Idiocracy, a culture too apathetic to recycle, buried under the weight of their own waste. And then came the Crocs. When the art department required futuristic shoes, they discovered the most repulsive shoes possible, rubber prototypes called Crocs. Judge considered them so awful nobody would ever wear them in real life. A few years passed, and Crocs went crazy in global fashion. What had been done in jest became prophecy. The satire was carried over to brands. Starbucks, Costco, Carl's Jr., Judge ridiculed them all. He anticipated lawsuits. But Fox's attorneys discovered a loophole. If all brands were satirized, no one could accuse them of unfair targeting. So Judge went whole hog. The upshot was a future where corporations were not only powerful, they were governments. And the one brand that was left untouched, unvarnished, basically unmocked was Fox News. Judge did not even spoof it. He just left it alone because in a dumbed-down future, Fox News already fit. Television in Idiocracy was symbolized by "ow, my balls," in which a man was repeatedly struck in the crotch. Judge believed he'd come up with the most stupid show ever. But within a decade, viewers were tuning into Jackass, America's funniest home videos and YouTube failure compilations. Reality had caught up. The warnings accumulated. A corporate-run society. Pain as entertainment-obsessed culture. A leader more spectacle than president. And yet, Fox killed the movie because they believed that it was too smart, too witty, too edgy. It grossed less than $500,000 in theaters, but on DVD it detonated. College dormitories, midnight shows, online forums. It became scripture to a generation that understood Judge hadn't created a comedy. He'd created a prophecy. And as the years went on, Judge himself acknowledged the same. He ceased referring to Idiocracy as a comedy and began referring to it as a documentary. Politicians plunged into spectacle. Social media made entertainment into noise. Corporations became unassailable empires. The most idiotic content was watched the most. Judge had not foretold the future. Reality had simply completed the picture. Fans wanted more. In 2016, Judge and Crews proposed the return of Camacho, adds appearances, full gear in an election year. But Fox didn't follow through. The joke was too real. Camacho wasn't parody anymore. He was a mirror. Even the movie's fictional products spilled over into real life. Brondo, the glowing sports drink that had what plants crave, was made into an actual product. For a short while, you could actually purchase bottles of the ridiculous gag. The line between satire and the real world grew even thinner. And Mike Judge once again recycled old faces. David Herman, Stephen Root, and others from Office Space showed up in Idiocracy, echoes of his previous work. The essence of Office Space, office despair, systemic breakdown, had merely transmuted into something more dumbed down, louder, and nastier. Judge had also taken cues from the Marching Morons, a 1951 science fiction short story about a future where intelligence is in decline as the intelligent cease reproducing. When he first read it, it read less like story and more like warning. 3 decades later, he reworked it into Idiocracy. It wasn't prediction, he contended. It was merely holding up a mirror to society that was already well on its way. And then there was the hidden detail, the disturbing genealogy chart at the start of the movie showing how stupidity outbred everything else. Pause it long enough, and you'll find a surprise. Hank Hill from King of the Hill. And a goat. Judge had quietly merged his entire comedic universe into Idiocracy. A family tree of absurdity, a crossover of satire, and a hidden wink at the audience. Ultimately, Idiocracy was meant to be a joke, a stupid comedy filled with fart jokes and cartoon people. But time worked its magic. Crocs became actuality. Ow, my balls took over the internets. Spectacle became more important than ability. Dumb began to triumph. A film Fox attempted to suppress became the prediction of an era. Judge captured it best. It didn't foresee the future. It merely foretold the one we laughed at, and then went quietly on to become